When you turn on financial media, markets are usually listening to a conversation about rates or semiconductors or what the Fed's going to do next. Our guest here in Trading Trends today looks at things in a little bit of a deeper way. He takes a look at liquidity. Joining us today is Michael Howell. He's the CEO of GL Index's former CEO, founder of CrossBorder Capital. He's author of the book Capital Wars. Maybe you've read it. And he's the perfect conversation guest for today's show. Michael, welcome.
Well, hi, Chris. Great to be here. Lots going on, as always, in markets.
It's a lot that's going on right now, particularly in the wake of last week's Fed meeting where everyone freaked out about Warsh's tone, lack of forward guidance. Will we have rate hikes? Will we not? Forget the noise, though, right now, because there's a lot of it out there, including with the yen intervention, which we'll get to in a quick second. What's the look today at global liquidity? What's it telling us about the next major move in risk assets and how central banks are managing energy crises and inflation problems amidst the Iran war?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that the cycle is rolling over. I mean, that's pretty clear. The momentum of liquidity in the financial sectors worldwide is slowing. There's one big exception there, which is China, but we can come on to that in a moment. But outside of China, basically liquidity has passed its peak and it's beginning to roll down. That's not really because central banks are tightening yet. I mean, there's the beginnings, the first signs of that. And I think Chair Walsh kind of hinted that the US is getting close to that point. But generally, it's because economies have been so strong. And we saw the ISM print yesterday, which actually was another big number. Looks like the US economy is on a roll. And the plain fact is that all money that's anywhere must be somewhere. So if it's in the real economy, it's not in the financial sector. And that sort of sucking sound of liquidity moving from financial assets to the real economy is basically going to make it a hard grind for financial assets to keep rising.
So we're not in necessarily the roll down part of the cycle. You say we're rolling over. Is this still a liquidity supported market?
Yeah, I think generally. I mean, it's a phase that we call speculative. I mean, the name, it's all in the name, but that really says you can make money, but it's kind of low quality because volatility is high. And you look at the last month and boy, volatility has been pretty high. You must have been asleep if there was no volatility. But markets are all over the place. And I think that's just a symptom of the fact it's been pulled in many directions. Liquidity is beginning to fade. There's not the straight line moves that we're seeing in many assets that we saw over the last 2 years. It's becoming a lot trickier. And you just got to look at the performance of many asset managers. Many have actually have got down year performances in 26, and it's been quite easy to be in that boat.
It seems like Kevin Warsh and other central banks right now, they really want to shrink their balance sheets and rebuild some credibility after an inflation shock. Maybe they're going to lose a little bit more through the current round. But obviously markets and governments have different considerations. They seem to want a little bit more liquidity than maybe policymakers are able and willing to provide here henceforth. Treasury issuance is quite heavy, right? Debt service is rising. Collateral demand is still enormous. Can we still see the Fed operate along its current lines of policy in a world that's dependent on refinancing and collateral?
Well, a short answer is no. I mean, it can't. It's a stiff ask. And the problem is that, as you rightly said, if you look at what governments are doing, governments are basically addressing every problem with more spending. And you look at what's happening, just look at the recent example of the Iran tensions. Pretty much every government worldwide, in the face of higher oil prices, dished out subsidies. I mean, that's printing money, or that requires accommodation through printing money. And that's the path of least resistance. And the fact is that a lot of governments are copying the US Treasury playbook, beginning to fund at the short end of the market. There's an awful lot of bill issuance going on. Yeah. Treasury Executive Besson has been very clever here, that he's starving the market of long duration and basically pumping everything into the short end. Now, that's all well and good. I mean, it solves the problem near term, but the fact is that this is monetization. Writ large, because who buys this debt is predominantly banks, and if banks buy government debt, they're printing money effectively. So it's not the Fed that's doing the QE, it's arguably the private sector, but it's being pushed in that direction by the Treasury. And it's not going to end well because, end GDP, in other words, nominal GDP is racing ahead, and that just looks way, way incompatible with what the bond market is currently pricing. And so it looks as if bond yields, could rise appreciably. And if you want a heads up on that, just look at what's happening in Japan. They're going down the same path, but they're, a couple of years ahead.
And they're spending about 10% of their government spending every single year on currency intervention at this current run rate, which is
Yeah,
remarkable for a
it
country
can't go
facing
on.
its. It just the math just doesn't math at a certain point here. I'm thinking about what's going on in treasuries right now in particular. Since the Fed meeting last week, we've seen the 2-10 spread widen out a little bit here. Went from around 32, 33 basis points to into the mid 40s. So 10 basis points, not huge, but also noteworthy and eye-catching here, even as stocks have been going up. I know in your framework, you view treasuries as collateral within the system as part of the plumbing of the system itself. So right now, given how the yield curve has been moving, what is the treasury curve telling us about the state of collateral liquidity and ultimately the risk that bond traders are bearing right now?
Well, I think that the situation is getting worse, and I think you can see that both in terms of rising yields. So that's basically denting collateral. But the other thing, which is actually almost more important, is looking at the volatility of that collateral. In other words, the move index, and the move index is definitely trending higher. And I think we're going to see coming out of the QRA tomorrow, the detail of the announcement, basically what they're going to do in the bill market and how much Treasury buyback is going to be announced. And those are sort of two critical numbers because it pretty much says whether the Treasury stroke Fed want to control volatility. And in other words, to sort of cut a long story short, whether they want to stop the yield curve steepening again. Now, I think my read of what Kevin Walsh was saying last week was that he wants the market to do the tightening for the Fed. In other words, read that as saying that he wants or is prepared to allow longer yields to rise a bit, okay, a bit in inverted commas. But he's also envisioning that the curve will steepen because what he also says in the same sentence, that he's basically going to allow reserves in the bank reserves to remain ample. So that means they're anchoring the front end of the curve. They're allowing the back end of the curve to rise. So my reading of what he was saying last Wednesday was that the Fed is banking on a steepening yield curve. And that's pretty much what we've been seeing. It's reversed the trend of the first 6-7 months of the year, which has been a very clear flattening of the curve. So I think this reversal is really what the Fed has been secretly planning, maybe.
So we get that.
Not.
Will it work is a different story. At the initial reaction when we had this Fed meeting and the steepening of the curve, the dollar seemed to be coming out of the gate strong. It was sitting close back to its yearly high. And then we got the intervention in the Japanese yen last week here. It feels like this may be part of the reason why equities are rallying a little bit. Dollar liquidity in the market is perhaps increasing, right? The Treasury selling.
Yeah, well, I think that makes sense. Yeah, it
Right?
makes a lot of sense. I mean, basically, what they've done is that we don't know the true scale of this yet, but if the Treasury has intervened, I mean, that's effectively putting liquidity into the markets for sure. I think that's one factor. But the other thing is that Kevin Walsh said that he reaffirmed this ample reserve environment, and that basically is saying there's a lot of money at the front end of the curve in the repo markets, and that's clearly what they're aiming at doing. And if there's liquidity in the markets, that's good for stocks near term. May not be great for bonds. And I think what you've seen pretty much since last Tuesday is the stock market picking up and the bond market, drifting off. And that would be, I think, a pretty, decent interpretation of that move.
Are we closer to a dollar liquidity squeeze or a dollar liquidity relief cycle?
Well, I mean, my view would be is if and when, and I think it's a question of when the Fed begins to tighten. I think they're going to have to because the bond market, is more or less screaming that. If you look at the spread between repo and 2-year Treasury notes, I mean, it's basically signaling, and it's pretty much correct. And the actual fact, as an aside, I did an AI back test, and it said, 85% of the time, the 2-year is right on predicting the future course of Fed funds rate. And that would say that you're looking at certainly a couple of hikes coming down the road. So as soon as the Fed starts to engage that, my view would be that the dollar starts to pick up. And I think that, inevitably, if the Fed tightens, the dollar goes up. I think we're going to see it again.
China used to be one of the biggest swing factors in this whole conversation of global liquidity, right? Credit expansion in China would support commodities, emerging markets, just broadly speaking, global risk appetite here. But it just seems from what I've been looking at, China's credit cycle is a lot more constrained right now. Is China still playing a meaningful source of global liquidity? Or you mentioned that these cycles go in ebbs and flows. Are we more near of the trough for the China portion or still on the way down?
Well, I think the key point about the current cycle is that the cycle in the West, led by the Fed, is basically beginning to roll over, as I said. But if you look at the Chinese cycle, it looks like it's the opposite phase of the cycle. It's beginning to pick up. And one of the things I mean, in my view, what China needs to do is to basically pump a lot of liquidity into its economy. China's the only major bond market where yields are dropping. Effectively, they're suffering debt deflation. China just can't go down this path. I mean, you look at the history of debt deflations, I mean, it really does kill economies. And so they've got to get out of that trap as soon as they can, which basically means devaluing the yuan domestically. Now, I'm making that distinction between external and internal, but they've got to basically print money internally. And what that means is if they do that, the gold price goes up, because gold is a fantastic monetary inflation hedge for domestic Chinese. That's what they love. Now, the fact is that we saw gold going up until we didn't. And basically since around March or thereabouts, we've seen the gold market begin to come off quite noticeably. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at the detail of People's Bank of China liquidity, they turned the money tap off on March the 2nd of this year. And they only restarted it again basically the day of the MOU. Now, if you look at that timeline, in other words, when Iran tensions began, the Chinese cooled their economy. And when it looked as if the Iran tensions were over, they restarted growth again. And I think China has basically deliberately tried to cool the economy, so import demands for crude are de minimis. And they seem to have achieved that. Now what they're doing is they seem to be restarting, and I would imagine that what you've got to see in the next few weeks and months is the gold market picking up. And the way that we tend to see this, albeit crudely, but it's not a bad heads up, that the People's Bank of China drives the gold bullion market, whereas the Fed and other central banks tend to drive Bitcoin. And if you look at that differential, that's worth bearing in mind.
You've been talking a lot recently about the shift towards more government-led actions. We've had industrial policy, defense spending, now AI infrastructure. That's already on top of the energy security and reshoring that the Trump administration has been trying to accomplish here. But these all feel like they're becoming a bigger part of the market, Michael. Dare I say, when you and I were kids, this kind of state capitalism wasn't necessarily the tip of federal government policy here in the United States. So the question I have is, does government-injected liquidity extend the cycle, or is it distorting prices and creating bigger imbalances that we're going to have to digest at some point in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think a great point. I think it extends the business cycle for sure. Does it extend the financial cycle? I think that's a moot point. My view would be that I think that's more problematic, because coming back to what I said at the beginning, all money that's anywhere must be somewhere. And the fact is that if it's being drained out of financial markets to feed a strong real economy, then you're going to get economic growth really at the expense of dull asset markets. And I think that's pretty much what Treasury Executive Besson has been arguing for, because he's been very much in favour of what you might call Treasury QE. In other words, the Treasury leads and the Fed takes a back seat. We've had 2 or 3 years now of Fed QE, which has caused this enormous wealth divide. Now it's the turn of Main Street, and it looks like the US economy is on a roll. And the interesting thing is that this playbook is now being picked up by a lot of governments worldwide. Everyone is now talking about fiscal flexibility. The Japanese are talking about big infrastructure spend. Germany is talking about big infrastructure spend plus defence. The French are always spending anyway, so that's not really a new event. But basically Europe is moving very much closer to the US playbook, despite the fact that there is this sort of interminable criticism of what the US does. But Europe is following. And I think a lot of countries are in this same frame now.
It's kind of remarkable coming out of the 2000s and 2010s when austerity and secular stagnation were kind of the name of the game in town for every major, fiscal authority in the world. Mohammed El-Arian wrote that book, I think, Central Bankers, the Only Game in Town, and how when you get central banks driving policy like this, it just creates these massive imbalances here. And maybe the fiscal authorities are catching up, but that doesn't mean they're going to bring things back to normal or into balance. So let's just look for a signal here, right? Often when people listen to these interviews, they want to know something like the quick and dirty. So if the liquidity cycle is turning, right, what market, what asset class is going to give us the cleanest early warning that the liquidity conditions are changing and we should start maybe battening down the hatches?
Well, I think the two things to watch would be, one is to see what happens to crypto, particularly Bitcoin. If you're looking at the, let's say, the Western liquidity cycle, that would be the greatest heads up. And you want confirmation by looking at the yield curve. And I think that if I said that Kevin Walsh probably wants a steeper curve, if he fails to get that and the curve starts to flatten more, then I think that's another indication that liquidity is failing. I think in terms of what's happening in China, If China starts to pump in liquidity, the gold market's going to go up a lot. And I think there's that divergence as an interesting thing to watch, because it would tell us that there are actually two parts of the world, and comes back to my thesis that we're in a capital war.
This has been another episode of Trading Trends. He's been Michael Howell, CEO of GL Indexes, former CEO of CrossBorder Capital, and author of Capital Wars, The Rise of Global Liquidity. I read that a while back. You should read it too. It's a good one. Michael, thanks for joining us here on Tasty Live.
Great pleasure, Chris. Thank you.
Make sure you like and subscribe for more interviews. Again, you've been watching Tasty Live.